Hi guys, this is Greg. I apologize for the terrible production quality of these videos. They're not meant to be exciting movies. You're probably only going to watch them once. It's what I say that hopefully is meaningful. A couple of thoughts to start off. I wore a blue shirt, even though that makes me a floating head. Please don't, ignore that. I have a black eye because I got hit by accident when a child threw something at my house. I'm not being beaten by a man off camera. Okay, so let's start. I just want to talk about the homework assignments that you guys did real quick using some examples so I can set you up for the new one. You're going to do more diagramming before you start writing. Okay, so Modern Family. Okay, the pilot. Okay, in the first scene, how we describe what's going on is important. Here's what I want you to know. And everybody did fine. I'm glad, because everybody was observant. But now I want to sharpen your observations. Okay? Only cap the verbs. Only cap the actions that the characters are taking. Okay? Don't cap the names of the characters. There's no need to tell me what actors play the characters because they don't matter for this exercise. And all you need to do is capitalize the dramatic actions so you notice them. Okay? What's a dramatic action? A dramatic action is an action with consequences. Telling me that someone enters or exits, that's not necessary. You don't need to even observe that. You don't need to write that down. Telling me that someone's cooking dinner is only important if the fact that they're cooking dinner has a dramatic relevance. If Claire and Phil are going to fight about who cooks dinner tonight, then who cooks dinner matters. If it's just the surface, what actors would call busy work in the scene, you don't need to tell me. Okay? So ignore the details and really try to look for the dramatic actions. Not always easy to find because sometimes it's buried and we can differ about what the dramatic action of a scene is, but you'll understand what I'm talking about. So I got the first scene right here. I'll give you some examples of what people said. So here's someone who wrote Act 1, Scene 1. Claire calls the kids down for breakfast and vetoes. Calls and vetoes are in caps. Haley's short skirt. Okay, calls is arguable whether it's a dramatic action because it's kind of surfacey. But more importantly, vetoes Haley's short skirt. Okay, so this person is catching on to it's important. They had an argument, right? That it's going to become an argument between her and Haley for a couple of lines there. Whether she can go out wearing these scandalous clothes, right? Great. Okay. Now, you don't have to do it exactly the way that person did it. Someone else wrote, Claire makes breakfast for her family. Again, that's probably the first thing they saw. Okay, fine. Okay, Haley enters in a short skirt that Claire rejects. You don't need to mention that Haley enters. Doesn't matter. But what's important here, Claire rejects. Okay, so the other person put vetoes. Here we have Claire rejects. People are catching on to what's really causing sparks in the scene, right? A third person, Claire calls her kids to come down for breakfast. Next sentence, Claire orders in caps, her family around during what's supposed to be a typical morning. Okay, the ordering around gives me an idea of what I need to focus on there. If I was to go back and look at it a month later, I'd probably say to myself, that Claire, she seems to be the boss. You could put, by the way, Claire bosses in caps, her family around. If that's the only thing you took from that first scene regarding Claire, that would be the main thing to catch on to. Again, there's multiple ways you can describe it. Here we have Suburban Mom. Another person wrote Claire Dunphy, and then he gave me the actor's name. Don't need to do that. Makes breakfast. Makes in caps. Okay. You can probably shed that. But anyways, her husband Phil and children and Alex. She gave me all the actors' names. You can delete the actors' names. Enter the kitchen. You can delete that whole sentence. Okay. Phil leaves to release his son from where he's stuck. By the way, that's also a dramatic action that he goes to release his son. Okay. Okay, but try to focus on the thing that's shedding the most dramatic sparks that have consequences. She's arguing with her daughter. I mean, it has probably minor to medium level consequences in that relationship, but it's dramatic action because they're fighting. We're kind of focused on the conflict. Okay, I'll show you how I describe this. I think I wrote this like 10 years ago. So, I mean, it's not perfect. I wrote Claire controls her family. So I put controls in caps, while Jay tries in caps to be a cool dad. It doesn't really matter how he did it, unless it's going to recur, right? Luke does something dumb. It's not the smartest way I could have written it, but I capitalized does. And Haley dresses in caps scandalously, defying Claire. Probably the best thing that I pointed out there was the defying, which is, I just turned it around and I gave you I gave you her action defying, and I gave Claire's action as controlling. I'm just seeing the dramatic action. Mine's by no means perfect, okay? But I was just trying to note everyone's dramatic action. And then I put for the interview, Claire explains in caps why she's so controlling, dominating Phil in caps, which I think is the important dramatic action there, okay? Who pretends in caps that he doesn't mind it. So you get some idea of the different choices that people made for this scene, okay? Here's another one, okay? Claire calls out her kids to breakfast. Claire and Phil debate who runs the most miles. That's true, they did kind of debate that. Haley is wearing a short skirt. Claire disapproves. Okay, so the disapproval is the action. You don't need to put she's wearing a short skirt. That's kind of passive. But, I put she dresses scandalously. In any event, again, catching the dramatic action is what's important here. Okay, so everybody's getting it. Okay, stay away from anything passive. Stay away from anything that's just being, like he is argumentative. Is not a fun verb to note. You won't know what to do with that when you see it later. The real purpose of these is to hone your skills at taking notes on an existing script so that if you were to come back and read your 1 or 2 page outline a year later, actually, better to call them diagrams, a year later, you'd catch on to who the characters are by noting their actions. Whether you see Claire as disapproving or as controlling or as bossing, they're all kind of in the same area. She's a bossy, controlling, disapproving mom. She's also got many good qualities, okay? She's a nice person, but you get it, okay? And in the battle between her and Phil, who wins? We all know who wins that battle, right? And we see that in the first couple of pages of this script. Okay, so focus on dramatic actions that have consequences where there's conflict. Stay away from who enters, who exits, who cooks dinner, unless it's important because it's a point of conflict. Okay? You guys are doing great. Just updating you on how to write these. You're doing great. We'll talk again in the future. Email me at depaulg@newschool.edu with any questions because you're going to do more outlines, outlines, diagrams. Doesn't matter what you call them. I call them diagrams or outlines. The point is that you do them and that you get used to writing these things so you have powers of observation where you can dissect a script, see what the actions are, where the drama lays or lies. I never know the difference. And what's important is you'll see as you write scenes when there's a lack of action or a lack of conflict between characters, even if it's subtle conflict, the scene will not be very good. It will suck. It'll be lame. It'll sit on the page. It won't have fun. It won't have drama. It won't have sparks. When you do give them actions, whether it's disapproving or bossing or refuting or denying, these are strong actions. Your scenes will live much better. They'll be much more exciting and fun to read. This being an online class, we don't have the virtue of being, we're not able to read things out loud. That's the one thing you lose in an online class. That's why I'm pushing this. In the in-person classes that I teach, the students can see immediately where the drama is because they write it. Then next week, we all just read everybody's scenes, and you can see the ones that have spark because there's actions in them. They're usually the fun scenes to play and the ones that make you wonder what happens next. Now that Claire and Phil are arguing about whatever it may be, I want to know what happens next in this recurring storyline. Does that make sense? If it doesn't make sense, email me. I want you to get this because actions and conflict are kind of at the soul of dramatic writing. They're at the soul of comedy writing. They're at the soul of farce. When you realize that a lot of this is conflict management, you setting them up to have conflicts with each other on purpose, all of the writing will come much easier. Okay? Talk to you soon. Thank you.